I'm Goo. I go by whatever pronouns, and I'm from New York City. It was fun. It was interesting. It's like a interesting place to grow up because I feel like it's just such a busy city. I did grow up a little bit in Beijing also, which is another busy city. So just like there's like lots of stuff to do all the time, but very like densely populated. I think cities are like an interesting place for a kid to grow up because there's like a lot of stuff for like now that I'm in my 20s, like there's like a lot of stuff to do, but like they're all for like they're usually like things that you do when you're like in your 20s. So I'm like, what did I do when I was a kid? Well, we didn't have a computer for a really long time, and then when we had one, we all had to share, and it was like the dial-up computer that like we would was it like you couldn't be on the phone at the same time? So we like kind of had a computer growing up, but we just had that one computer, and my mom had to be on the phone a lot for her work. So we were like fighting over the computer a lot. So in that way, we were exposed to technology, but it was like very limited. I think when I went to college, they were offering classes, and I really liked video games. And I thought that video games and computer science were kind of the same thing. Which I learned that I didn't learn about like video game development at all in the computer science world, but I think that's actually why I started learning computer science. And also I think I was really into like a lot of the early like social media websites like MySpace and even Neopets, which I guess isn't social media, but it was just like fun to like those were like probably like the most fun parts of my childhood in terms of like being myself on a computer. So like I really enjoyed both playing video games and like taking care of my online pets, and also like getting to like I actually didn't have a MySpace, but I would go on my friends and design their websites. So that was like kind of fun for me. So I was just like, oh, maybe that's computer science because literally these things were like on a computer or a device. My experience in high school, we actually didn't have any computer science classes. Now my high school offers computer science classes. I remember I had like an old MacBook. I remember thinking that Apple was super cool and that the laptop that they gave us was super cool, and it was like really cool that I could carry it around. But I didn't learn that much actually about like tech or computer science until college. I just thought that it was really like technology was super cool, and the fact that like I could do things on websites was really cool. And like I didn't know how the internet worked, but it was like fun to learn stuff on the internet and be able to like be connected in that way. Computer science was definitely not what I thought it was going to be, but I actually really enjoyed it. I just like honestly thought I was going to learn how to build a computer and then we were going to make a video game. So that was like we didn't do any of that, so that was like kind of unexpected. But it was really cool like learning about sort of like how to build things and like talk to the computer. And I ended up really liking it. So in that way, like it wasn't what I expected, but I did learn something like really cool. And I think I could apply it to the things that I was really interested in, because I do think a lot of people ended up doing like things like they applied their knowledge of computer science to do things that they like creating like web apps that like really showcased an idea that they had, or like being able to use like APIs to like sort of like also showcase ideas that they had. Like a lot of people use like music APIs, for instance, to be like, oh, this is how I like want to visualize music or like the things that I like. So that ended up being really cool. So I actually double majored in media studies and computer science. And my internships in college were like all around like print design and like UX UI design. So I honestly like didn't really know what I was doing for a really long time. And then like I think my senior year of college, like people were interviewing for tech companies, and I hadn't like ever had an internship in tech. So I didn't really actually have a plan. Like the way I came into computer science was just because I thought that it sounded really cool. And then I ended up pursuing a career in it because I think I was introduced to some opportunities. And that's sort of how I ended up having a career in tech. I think a lot of the challenges I got were mostly around being like I don't know. I think for me, like I'm pretty passive, so like it's hard for me to get taken seriously sometimes. So like I think that was my challenge. That was like more of my initial challenge was like kind of like entering the corporate work field and like being like taken seriously or like having my ideas taken seriously or like kind of like fighting for things that I felt strongly about was like always difficult for me. Um, so like those were my primary challenges, and then I think, um, yeah, I think a lot of times like you always hear about like when you're in a certain profession, like regardless of what it is, I think people have an idea of what someone looks like in a profession, and sometimes like if you don't match that idea in like whatever profession, like people don't necessarily like see you in that role, I guess. So like because I think a lot of people didn't like see me as a software engineer sometimes, like it was hard to like be comfortable in that role because like I don't know, just like sometimes a lot of people like have assumptions of like people when they see them, and they like when they have those assumptions, like you can kind of tell like what their assumptions are, and that makes things difficult because it's like hard not to pick up on those assumptions, and it's hard not to like kind of internalize those. So that was like a lot of the challenges because I think like when I tell people about like the things I'm interested in, like for instance, like I want to do professional Smash Bros Ultimate. Like I want to be a professional Smash Bros Ultimate uh fighter, which is like kind of like esports, and people are just like what. But like some people are like most people are really nice about it, but sometimes people are like when you tell them something and it doesn't like match their idea of you, they kind of like automatically let you know by accident, like in their reaction or on purpose. But that just makes things difficult to like pursue things that you like. I don't know. I don't know if anyone's like for I think that I definitely had times where I dealt with it better than others and times where I didn't deal with it that well. Cause I think sometimes I definitely internalized it. Like if someone was like, oh, like you don't seem like you would be good technically, or like you would be better at like stuff that involves like more like planning a team outing or stuff like that. Like I would internalize those things and end up like doing those things. Like I do think it's like quite it's like a working thing, right? Like it's like a lot of people have imposter syndrome, and a lot of people like get discouraged, and then like you just kind of have to work through it, and you have to be able to like kind of like not tie yourself to other people's approval and like tie your value to what other people think of you, which is like a really hard thing to do, I think. And sometimes I would be able to like block that stuff out, but I definitely had issues like internalizing those things. Yeah, because I think a lot of a lot of what gets you through things is like meeting people who have either like gone through the same thing or seeing like positive representation that reminds you of yourself. Or even just like being able to relate to someone's experience and knowing like you're not alone. Because I think a lot of what's difficult is like if you feel like you're kind of alone in what you're going through and like not being able to overcome it at all and feeling like you're like the only person going through it. So I think like that's why it's like really positive to see orgs that like kind of bring people together who have like a lot of shared experience and like supporting each other through it and like finding positive representation in those orgs. I think I actually might have always felt that way, or at least for a really long time, because like I grew like to be transparent, like I grew up around a lot of people that didn't look like me, so it was like kind of like my mom immigrated here, and she like kind of had I don't know. We just like she immigrated here and like we had like a very unique experience in my neighborhood, which kind of like always made me feel like a little bit isolated. And I think like when you feel isolated, you like never want anyone else to feel that way. So you kind of like actively work toward like making inclusive environments, because a lot of that is like sort of like seeing yourself in other people. Like I think a lot of it is like self-motivated in a way, because like I'm like, oh, I felt really isolated as a kid, and like I don't want anyone to ever feel that way again, you know? And so like I think that's when I became socially aware, because it was more about like I was like Um, I was socially aware in the sense that I never wanted anyone to feel like they didn't belong anywhere. Because I think when I was little, I didn't feel like I belonged anywhere, but only because we were in such a small bubble where like everyone in the community was like kind of the same except for our family. Um, and so that was why, since I was little, like I wanted to work in those spaces or work toward being socially conscious. I met Alex actually at a talk, and we had created, my friend Kira and I had created a hackathon that was meant for like underrepresented people in tech, because we basically, my friend Kira and I were in Women in Computing at NYU, and we noticed that like, you know, like you're in your first computer science class and there's always someone who like makes like there's a bunch of people who like make you feel like you can't do computer science because they like have been doing computer science since they were little, or like they like were already exposed to it. So we like created a hackathon, and Alex was our first speaker. And she started Emergent Works, and like we have always like were such big fans of her, and like she has always been so like community driven, and she's always been such an advocate for people. So like when she started Emergent Works, like I guess her, Kira and I had always followed along. And I had always actually wanted to be a mentor. So it was like nice to have the opportunity to. So I was fortunate enough to like know Alex, basically. My mentee experience was super positive. I really enjoyed working with my mentee. And like we got to basically like work together, which was really nice. Like it never felt like I was the mentor or anything. Like it just seemed like we were always just like learning together. Cause like I don't think I have all the answers for everything, you know? Like we were building a web app basically together that let you find community fridges in New York as like a version 1 prototype. And it was kind of like, you know, like I'm not like, oh, I know how to use the API. Like I know how to use every single API off from memory. He actually helped me a lot in terms of like learning how to teach and like learning how to learn, and also learning how to like find things out together as a team. So it kind of felt really collaborative all the time, which was really nice, because I think like I was really worried about like just like dumping information all the time at him, and like sort of like not feeling like I was helping him in any way or teaching him anything, and just like being like, this is how you do this and this is how you do that, which is just kind of like a list of information. But it was nice to have that like collaborative teaching and learning experience. I don't know, I didn't really think about like I guess I guess that's a difficult question, because it's like I never really think of people's backgrounds as like a reason to like not teach someone or teach someone, or like not to like give them a chance. So I wasn't like, oh, like I wanted to specifically help previously incarcerated people. I just was like, it was more just like I was like, I don't think anyone's background should inhibit them from being able to have opportunities and to learn. So in that way, I was just like, this place is like I was like, this place needs mentors, so I want to help. And my friend Alex like is starting this organization that's giving people an opportunity that otherwise wouldn't have one. I don't know, it's just kind of like I feel like we live in a really punitive society where it's like I feel like people are really punished for their past behavior, and I don't think that's like all people are, and I don't think that should stop anyone from like sort of like their potential. Yeah, definitely, because I think that, for instance, like if you don't have a diversity of voices, like the product itself doesn't like speak to like a varied audience. Like if you don't have any diversity in your workplace, like your product kind of speaks of like it kind of, your product that you make reflects that, because sort of like the product that teams make are sort of like the product of the voices that go into it. And you can always tell, I think, when you don't have any like diversity in your team and you make a product, because you usually forget about like either like, I can't think of anything right now, like a specific product right now, but I think like, for instance, like, oh, actually like a lot of image recognition stuff, like for instance, like wouldn't recognize anything but like white men, or like it would like be very good at recognizing white men because like a lot of white men worked on it, and so like, and they wouldn't think about like people of color, for instance. So I don't know, it kind of speaks for itself, right? I think a lot of like corporate industries are like that because it's like a lot of corporations are like run by like, I feel like the like elites, which is like usually reflected by the people who have the most opportunity to be in the corporate elite. So like ideally like leadership and the people who get to make decisions and the people who get to be in power aren't just like the people who have had the most opportunity or like the people who have had like the most traditional backgrounds. Like you, hopefully you get to see in leadership like, you know, the reflected by the people that they lead, and by that I mean like hopefully like leadership actually reflects the people who they lead, like in terms of like the demographics that they lead and the people that they impact, like hopefully that's like reflected in leadership. Because right now I feel like leadership and the people that are new to tech and the people that they like try to get in the tech pipeline are like so different, right? Like regardless of whether a company like cares about diversity, like you can't just have like the people at the bottom like kind of like look different than the people at the top, which I feel like is like kind of what always happens, right? Because it's like, and then it's sort of just like the leaders just like kind of like paying lip service, I guess, if you do that kind of stuff. Because like you would want to be led by someone, like you would want to have like someone in leadership reflect your values and beliefs and like the like where you come from and like what you think and what you believe in, which I don't see a lot of right now, to be honest. Like a lot of leadership right now is like people from traditional backgrounds, like people who have had like a lot of experience in tech, people who have had like a lot of like opportunities to get to where they are. I think it's just great that like a lot of people are getting the opportunity to like learn how to code through initiatives and like enter the tech workforce, which like usually like has like a specific salary. Like I think it's just nice to like be able to like learn learn tech, learn how to code, which I think is accessible to everyone, and then like enter the workplace and have like a pretty like stable salary and like a stable job and like have that happen. But I think there's still like a lot of work to be done in terms of like helping people feel the support that they need in the workplace and helping them like level up and like making sure that they like stay in tech and stay in the workplace and like feel, because I do think like it's nice that like people are getting, there's a lot of demand for tech jobs and a lot of people are like able to like now get tech jobs because they like learn how to code. But it's like important that they're able to like stay in the workplace and make sure that they like feel good in the workplace and then like be able to like level up and like into like higher levels and like become like senior engineers and stuff like that and like have a place in leadership. I don't know like I feel like I don't have like the exact answer for like how that would change because like I'm not in leadership, because I think a lot of it is like kind of like I feel like a lot of people have attitudes where they don't like understand like what opportunities people are given and like why certain people might have more opportunities to be in leadership. Like I think there are people who genuinely believe like people at top like deserve to be there, and it's not, they don't think about like what exactly led them there. Like they don't think about like, oh, if you are in like a well-off family and you have like the opportunity to go to college and you don't have to worry about money, and then you like they don't, I don't think there's like a lot of like understanding or thought put into like how people get to where they are, because I think like for them that's just their life, you know what I mean? So it's like I think a lot needs to be done in terms of like thinking about like if someone joins a team and they're from like a non-traditional background, like, and they like, I feel like if someone doesn't naturally succeed, for instance, like people are like, oh, there's something wrong with them. But I think a lot of it is actually like the support that people get, because I think a lot of people can actually succeed. I think most people can succeed in the workplace if they just get enough support and they like, people actually think about like the support that people need to succeed. Or like why like someone from like a non-traditional background or who had like not as much opportunity to get into tech, like why they might need like different support, because like some people are just like, I think, well equipped to be in the corporate workplace, not because they're more capable, but because like they've had exposure in that way, or like they've had parents who have had like exposure to corporate workplaces, so they like know how to like prep their kids, or like they've gone to like they've just like had more prep work. So like a lot more thought just needs to be put into like someone joins a company, how do we make them succeed, especially if they like are from like a different background. I would just love to see the mentees feel supported and successful in their careers, whether that be in tech or like something else. Like I know a lot of people like are learning tech, but like they might not necessarily want to like be software engineers. Like it would just be nice to see like whatever their passions are, like they feel like they're part of a community that supports them and like they feel celebrated. So in terms of like what I see in 5 years, I just mostly like see the mentees like feel like they're successful, or like that everyone like felt supported through this program, and like you kind of like, I think like the best thing is that you like meet these people, like mentees, mentors, like whoever is involved in the program, and you see like you see them succeed basically, and you feel like you can support them, or you like can support each other. So in terms of specifics, I don't know, but like it would be great to see everyone like pursue their dreams, whether it be like music technology, or like being a software engineer, or like being like a leadership at a tech company, or even just like being a musician, like whatever they decide to do. I think like a lot of tech just needs more compassion, right? I think like the tech industry, there's so much room for harm, and there's so much room for good. The fact that you can like look something up and you can learn something because you looked it up through like search, like whatever search engine you use, like that's amazing. But like then there's like stuff where it's like, you know, like there's stuff that you hear about like tech being kind of scary, like either through like maybe like musicians aren't getting paid even though there's like streaming services, or like that like maybe like companies are like gathering your data in ways that you don't understand. So there's like, you know, there's like really good things and there's really harmful things. So I think like in terms of like the direction of tech, like I hope that like people who join the tech industry and who like work in tech like just work with compassion for like the people that they impact, because it is like a really high impact industry, right? Like there's a reason why there's so many jobs getting created, and you like kind of can't tell like where the future is, because there's like a lot of people who want to do good in the field, and there's a lot of people who like kind of like I don't even know if they want to do harm, but like maybe just like want to make money and like do things that are harmful. So just like work with compassion, I guess. I'm Goobean on Instagram. I'm actually gonna try to pursue a career in animation and comic work, like making like comics and illustration. But I hopefully will like stay a little bit in the tech industry, but I plan to like work more toward that in the future. But I do love to code, so we'll see. Hopefully I'll get to like make my own stuff, or like there's like a lot of cool stuff with art and tech. Like I think processing is like a really cool library. They might be called P5 now, or they might be called P5. I don't know the exact name, but there's like a lot of room for that as well. My name is Gu. I'm a former mentor. I'm a proud member of the EW family, and I believe excellence in code can come from anyone.